Oh, all right. Little bit of a late start. Oh, excuse me. Just woke up pretty recently, so I'm still kind of getting myself together here. My desk is a mess from this weekend. Oh man. I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab some water. I'll be right back. I'm gonna need some. Ooh, alrighty. Okay. Get myself together here. I think I got everything I need. Oh, well, hello everyone. Well, for my area of the world, it's good morning. Oh, let's see here. Just getting my stuff together. So welcome, welcome back to to our UX workshop. I'm trying to grab my trying to grab our Figma file here. Give me 1 second. Okay, open. Alrighty. Let's see here. Okay. Sorry, because like when I was getting started earlier, I don't know excuse me. I don't know, like my streaming program said it wanted to update itself. I was like, okay, that's fine. But it did it like 2 or 3 times, and it kept restarting my computer, and I'm like, I really got to get going here. So I was kind of dealing with that. So I just had to kind of figure that out. But it's all figured out now, and I apologize. I'm just disorganized because we're doing a lot of cleaning. This past these next couple weeks, trying to get organized here, and everything I have is a mess. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. We'll just get. Okay. All right. All right, so let's bring us over here. We can get started. Okay, so in fact, let's go even smaller. Yeah, we're gonna go even smaller just so everyone can see better. Okay, so to give a recap of our project here, so this is part 3 of of a UX workshop that we've been doing. And so where we started is, sorry, give me 1 second here. And so what we've been doing this whole time, we've been designing an app for watching anime on your phone. We've been doing something very, very simple. Sorry. Come on. Oh my goodness. What is wrong with this thing? And we've been doing it very simple, just having a navigation screen and then having the actual video part. We've just been doing that to keep it simple, but going through the entire UX process. So the first time, and you can see the videos on the YouTube channel. I assume they're probably also on Twitch too. The first part, we kind of focused specifically on the user research of it, okay, and what we did, and what the game plan would have been. This is not a real project, so what the game plan would have been. We see the second time around, we talked about kind of the step after user research where you're getting into, designing, doing some like hard design. And so we kind of went through that, right? Went through. Oh, that's right. This is right. Went through. And we went through the design guidelines for doing iPhone. So kind of like how that whole thing works and some things that you want to keep in mind. And so today, and then we talked about this was the first time we talked about the importance of what user research really does to a project. Why it's so important. And so today we're going to continue our design, and we'll talk a little bit about user testing. So how you are able to whittle down the things that you work on, the versions that you work on, how you whittle that down to the best version of itself, so you get it, your project done on the first try. Let me see here. Okay. Just keeping that there for now. Okay. I'm done with that. So, should be pretty fun. Of course, anyone feel free to ask questions. No problem at all. And so we'll do that, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end for, half an hour, 45 minutes. We'll probably be streaming for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours today. Hopefully get the project done today. Okay, so so we already talked about that we did user research, right? We, supposedly, we did our surveys, we did our user interviews, we found out, what kind of features people wanted, right? And so we're like, all right, let's get into designing this sucker. So, let's see here. All right, so we got our, nav screen here. We broke this up into all the different features and frames and components. Let me see here. Talked about. Let me see here. That's right. We took it's been a couple weeks. Let me see here. That's right. We had filtering and sorting. We took in consensus. As a group, talked about what in what ways would you want to filter and sort. And so we got a couple of options for that. And we have the video player. Let's see, this was like a rough design, so we don't need that anymore. We're kind of moving on, right? Let me see here. That's right. And these were some, let me see here. Oh yeah, and this is how, let me see here. Yep. And this will be important for user testing when we get to that point. Okay. And we talked about, again, we did research on what's the most common phone screen size today, so you'd want to design for that, but also making it so that it fits the smallest most common phone owned today, so that way it works well on all devices. And this is there we go. Okay, so we have our home screen here. Right, so we got our design ideas. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna implement our design ideas, and then we want to go into user testing, find out, work out all the dislikes, I guess you could say, so that we're left with a product that is only, at least for the most part, liked by consumers. So okay, so let's work on our filtering sorting menus. So now this is something. So how you want to do filtering sorting menus? It really, again, and the answer for most of this is it really depends. So it's one way Apple does it is you'd click on the sorting menu here, and there would be a little drop down that would pop up right here. And when you would tap it there, almost like what a computer does. Also keeping in mind, where our hand areas are. Let me see here. This is the screen, so we gotta keep it in mind, like where the most comfortable area is for people to put their thumbs. Right. So that's one way you could do it, where you have the drop down where, but what I actually like to do is I like to have it, and I do that for the products that I'm working on for our project. It actually pops down. It actually, it's called a bottom sheet. Everyone calls things differently. I don't get too caught up on what things are called. There's actually a bottom sheet that pops up from the bottom here. I like that because your thumbs are like right there. And your thumbs tend to be more dexterous when you're using the phone, because when you're using it, you can do your thumbs, but if you do it with your finger, you're kind of just picking at things. So that's how I would suggest doing it. So let's design, how that might look. It's also very good for people that are on the go. It's good for like being able to, like I said, if someone is walking, it's a little bit easier. Then again, the button is down here, so they got to use two hands to get that anyway, but is what it is. So I do have to say, forgive me. It's been a while since I've used Figma because we use XD at my job, and as you all know, I absolutely abhor. I hate XD so much, but what can you do? Let me see here. You usually do 15 or something like that. Okay, so we'd create like this bottom sheet, and I'm going to try to not spend too much time getting too fancy on this stuff because I don't want to waste too much time. Oh my god. And yes, it's pretty typical that I will hit wrong keys on stuff because I just can't chill. Okay, so we're gonna work on this bottom sheet here, the text here. So what text size do you usually go with? Again, it completely depends on you. But iPhones start with a base of 17, or excuse me. Well, I'll say this for their nav bar up here, and we talked about the last workshop, so you can watch the video that talks about that. There's a title that goes there sometimes. That's 17. I like to start with 16 because that is as your base, right? So if you had like a text field that you were typing stuff in, like this right here is 24. That's because this is just a label. The text should be at least 16. 16 is the size of text that is very easily seeable, by people. So I like to start with 16. Since this is sort of a title, we'll go with 18 here. Okay, let me see. It's about... We'll make it 15. 15 away. I forget how to do... Alright, and so it kind of has these... Okay, so the iPhone bottom sheet kind of has these lines. My goodness. Okay, there we go. Let me see. So how? Let me see here. So no, we wanted to do 15 by. Oh no, we. Let me see. No, I like 15. Okay, and then we'll give this, let me see here. And then sometimes there is below this, oh, it's so nice to be in Figma again. Oh, works so much better than XD. Signies. Hey, no, welcome. No, you didn't miss too much. No, you're fine. Okay, so usually, like I said, I'm just designing this based on the way iPhone does it. So, you'll have at the top of the bottom sheet, you'll have the title of it. And then if there's like a default, they'll put it down here. That's completely up to you if you want to do that. Let me think. So let me think. What would be... So the default would probably be something like recommended. And I always forget how to spell recommended. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I did spell it right. Okay, see? That's from spending years and years of not knowing how to do it. Okay, and then so that's usually like some type of grade. Hold on, this is actually, I forgot. I'm on Figma now. I can use Roboto. Actually, what is... Oh, man. The reason I'm happy is on my work computer, it, for some reason, doesn't... Oh, I love Roboto. I don't know why. I just got this thing for Roboto. A lot of people do. On my work computer, for some reason, it never recognizes my fonts, and it drives me nuts. So the head designer is always like, how come your fonts aren't right? I'm like, because this stupid XD won't recognize them. Anyway. Okay. Let me see. And then usually, let me think, is this usually small? Yes, yes. And this is usually a text size smaller. And then I'm going to give a padding here of 10. And that's just my personal choice. Now, for these, I recommend a padding of at least... Oh, see, look at that. Man, XD is awesome. Actually, what I should have did first was... Let's, I'm going to be honest, probably easier to just bring the opacity down to like maybe 50% or something like that. Maybe 25. That works, so it's a little more subtle. Alright, so below here there's going to be, these are going to be the choices that they'll have for the different sorting stuff that they do. Which means these are going to be, primary actions, right? So that's the general rule with UX um, in design in general, is how do you decide on the position of buttons and stuff, right? And there's a couple things you keep in mind. You're going to keep in mind this, right? How easy it is for users to get to it. How do you know how big they're going to be? Um, that's usually sometimes that's a tough thing for some designers to kind of like, especially when you're starting out. You're like, well, I don't like when we do the user research, we have a list of things that they want, right? But you're like, okay, well, where do I put them? Like, how do you do that? And the answer always is it depends, right? Depends on what kind of your approach is, right? So what I'm going to tell you, in the way, at least the way I do it, it's a combination of a couple things. First off, how are you designing your app? Are you designing it according to Apple's guidelines, where you have these? You're always going to have a status bar. There's nothing you can do about that. That's built in. But these, and then usually there's always going to be a bar like this. That's but beyond that, it's completely up to you on like how strongly you're gonna move forward with that. So it's a combination of that, like, okay, so what is your style? Combination of this, okay, how easy is it to touch? And then, of course, the size of it, right? So to answer your question, your first thing is like, okay, so is this going to be a primary action? In other words, is this something that they're going to be like, that they're going to be touching all the time? Or, for example, is it something that they really, really, really badly want, and they've said that, we're going to use this a lot? I should use my clock, shouldn't I? To keep myself on track. That's a good idea, isn't it? Oh, hold on a second. I forgot about this thing. I'll keep myself on track here. Sorry, give me 1 second here. Okay, that's good enough. So that's the other thing too, is is it something that they really badly want? And they say, oh, I'm going to use this all the time. So that's what should determine the placement and size of it. Is it a primary action or is it a secondary action? So to give you an example, for our thing here, looking at this home screen, what is the primary action that they're going to be doing all the time? It's going to be scrolling, right? They're going to be scrolling through anime, right? So then there you go. This is nice and front and center, right? These are nice and big. We made them 100, 112 by 112. A touch target of, and this is not a hard and fast rule at all. You got to do a little bit of research. Maybe one day I'll talk about that. Your touch targets should be at least, I'll put it this way, it's 40 pixels for your finger. Your thumb is like 50 or somewhere between 50 and 60. But it's kind of like a thing that 40 is like a good number, okay? 40 is a decent number, okay? So, but that's the thing. As a primary action, it needs to be at least 40 pixels, but I would make them, I would start, when you're designing, I would start big, and move with that assumption in mind. And then if, the devs are like, hey, and if you find out, oh, there's not enough space, then yeah, then maybe go smaller. But I would start with the best sizes, and then, if you have to make changes later on, then make them small. But the point is to start on the best foot with the best UX. So to reiterate, this is the primary action here, that they're going to be scrolling through, this area. So what we did was we made it nice and big, right? It's in the area where your thumb is going to be most comfortable, right? These are nice and big touch targets, 112, pixels. You can't possibly miss it, right? So that's the primary thing they're going to do. The secondary thing is, that they might, search or filter, right? That's something that they're probably going to do less often than scrolling through this stuff. So then we put it up here, and we put it up here too because we're going with the we decided that we're going to do the iPhone style, right? We're going to work with that framework, okay? So that also dictates where the stuff is going to go. Excuse me. We talked about, okay, what are some tools that would be helpful, right? We said, sorting and filtering and sorting and searching. Okay, so then they're going to go up there, right? They're gonna be 32 pixels. That's a good, 32 is a good size for secondary. Because that's the other thing too. You don't want to have, a ton of buttons everywhere, all being size 40, because then you can accidentally click on them, right? So, which is annoying, right? So, there you go. That's the spiel of how do you decide how big things are, where they go, stuff like that. It's all comes down to, is it a primary action or is it a secondary action? Is it something they're going to do all the time, or is it something they're only going to do, sometimes, right? So anyway, getting back to it. So our bottom sheet here, when you click on the sort button and you get your options here, it's going to, because, if they've hit the sort button, which they couldn't do by accident, they did it because they want to, well then, they obviously want to sort. So that's why I want to use the bottom sheet instead of like instead of a menu pop down here, because I'm like, well then obviously you want to sort. So I want to make this as easy as possible to use. So I'm going to go with a bottom sheet that comes down, from the bottom. And then the area of those, of those clickable areas are going to be at least 40. And you know what? I'm going to go a little bit bigger because I can't imagine there are going to be a lot of choices. Actually, 50 looks ugly. We'll start with 40 for now. That's fine. But you're going to do whatever, you're going to go with whatever you think is best. And you know what? Let's bold this. Is it still lined up with it? It is. And is it still 10 pixels from there? Okay. Cool. Okay, so so let's see. Let's see here. Make sure that this is. So we want to line up with. Is it still? Oh, it's 15. Oh, you know what? It's good to have. Yeah, we want those to line up. Let me see here. This is. So I think the one at the top is always like what turns out to be the default. Whoa. Actually, this is my bad. I don't know. It's too early for me. This is actually what it usually what it looks like. And let me see here. There we go. 8. Okay. All right. So I believe, I could be wrong though, and again, it completely depends on what you guys would want to do. I think the default is like the first possible choice, right? And so let me see. We sort by categories. Oh my goodness. See categories. Let me see here. Let me see. Episode length, right? That's something that we talked about. To be honest, I don't know how. I don't know how useful that would be, but you know what? Whatever. We set it, so we're gonna do it. Let me see. Only dubbed, and I mean that's what user testing is for. Only dubbed, and then let me think. It was like language preference. You know, whatever. We set it. It's just a demonstration, so we're gonna go with it. Language preference, okay? And then let me think here. I think that they leave one sort of empty area here. There is no gray bar. And so I believe they kind of leave that. You know, we'll make that a component. Okay, so that's. And like I said, I apologize. I don't use we use XD at my job. I hate it. So it's been a while since I've worked with Figma, so my prototyping is not going to be nearly as good as I usually am. Let me see here. So this is sorting, right? Let me see. So I think that there's a thing for, I'm trying to remember, overlay, open overlay. Yeah, give me 1 second here. So there's and that's something. And that's something a bit of advice for when you're doing prototyping for like user testing and stuff like that, right? When you're doing if it's for the sake of user testing, try to be as close to the final product as you can be without getting too crazy and spending too much time. Just because sometimes users will get hung up on little details that you're like, can you please move past it? Like, I'm not asking you to look at that. I'm asking you to look at something else. Can you just move past it? I had some like gray buttons as stand-ins for a product that I was testing like a month and something ago. And they would not stop complaining about the gray buttons, and I was like, I'm thinking they're just placeholders. They're not going to be like the real thing. But oh my goodness, they couldn't get past it, and so I finally changed them to like actual buttons, and then they were so much happier after that. But I mean, that's my thing. I'm the one who designed the test, right? So that falls on me. So try, if you can, make it as make it as true to life as possible if you can. You'll have a lot less headaches, and you don't want their feedback to go off kilter or to be unfocused. So try to make it as comfortable as possible for them if you can. You do the best that you can. So I think with this, we'd go with open overlay and bottom center, close and clicking outside. Yep. Oh, nice. Move in. Okay, so let's yep, there we go. Right? So there we go. So that works. And so that's the other thing too is, so one thing we might do for the prototyping, we might do something like that, right? Where it actually works. It works the way it's intended, where it has the animation and everything, right? Or we could have like just copy and paste this on the bottom here and did like an auto animate thing. I mean, we'd have to like hide this down here somewhere. I've done that before too, right? And there's like pros and cons to that, whether just doing it this way or just doing like the step-by-step method. And I without being in that situation right now, it really can't explain it, but that's completely up to you, how you want to do that. But there are pros and cons to it. All I can say is you will know when it's the right time for that sort of thing, right? So cool. Okay, so we got the sorting thing. Really quickly, we'll do the filter menu, which actually filter would have been a better option for some of these, wouldn't it? Let me see. There is no default for filter. No, I think I'm trying to remember. That's my thing. I'm trying to remember what we talked about last time. I seriously just can't remember. Okay. So I'm curious now. I think this should work. Ooh. Yeah, I gotta fix that. Oh, that's why. Duh. Hold on. Yeah, I think I have to. I think I bring it outside the group. And then we remake the component. And I think pretty sure we gotta reattach it, right? Yeah. Look at that. Even remembers. Okay, that is not. Let me see. Open overlay. There we go. Yep, yep. And that should work. Yep, good stuff. Okay. So that's what I thought. I was like, how do you sort by that sort of thing? But there we go. All right, good. So that's. So yeah, I think I just misunderstood, just forgot what we were talking about last time. Okay. Ungroup it. Okay, and then just plus 40. I know there's a ton of spacing there, but I'm just trying to move through this. Tab, open overlay. Yep, yep. We'll have it move in from the bottom. So that should work too. Yep, there we go. Cool. Right, so we got that. Let me see here. Okay. I don't even know what I set the timer for, to be honest with you. Okay. We'll say we'll do. See, I'm so out of sync today. It's been such a long time. I don't stream ever. So yeah, we'll do 15 more minutes of where we're kind of messing with this, right? And we'll call it done. Let me see here. So I think that we were going to have some titles here, right? So is this a group? Okay, so that's a group, right? It goes all the way down there. Okay. All right, so let's ungroup that. All right, so we'll have a favorites section. And I'm just choosing Roboto just because, I don't know. Stem. Okay, so what size text? So we said that 16 is the default, right? That's what the base that we start from. The size, you're like, okay, so what size should titles be? Well, that's something that you will decide. You know, that's part of also creating a design system, which you'll do. You know, and so the only way is you got to kind of just start working through it, and eventually it'll make sense to you. Okay, so these will be favorites. Let me see here. to give you a little bit of a tip on, how, the spacing of stuff, like how do you know how close things should be to each other? So there's a couple different factors for that. Actually, like 5 better. So there's a couple of different design principles that go into that, on deciding how do you know how close this should be from here, how much space, should be 5, 10, 15. So there's 2 design principles. First off, association, right? So anything that's close to each other, you're going to assume like they're related to each other, right? So for example, if I have this, so I have, so these are supposed to be the anime that are your favorites, right? If it's 5 pixels, which is relatively, or I'll put it this way, let's say it's like right here, right? It's like right underneath it. You're going to assume that these are the favorites, right? Because they're really close together. And you're like, okay, so what about if it's 5 pixels? Is it still close together? What about 10 pixels? Is it still close together? What about 15 pixels? Is it still close together? It kind of really depends, doesn't it? It's kind of one of those things you kind of just need to see with your eyes, right? And then also too, it's about consistency, right? Right now I think I chose it to be 5 pixels close, right? So if I did this, and also hierarchy, that's hierarchy is also another thing, right? But because these are like all evenly spaced from each other, it's kind of like you probably get the idea that okay, this says everything below it before the next header like belongs to it, right? But it looks weird, right? So what you do is I'm like, okay, these are 5 pixels from each other. That's, close by. So that means that, they're related to each other. This is not related to this. So I'm going to, in fact, I might give myself a little bit more of a wide berth. Right? So look at that. So let's say, what was the other thing? Popular picks. I'm gonna go with recommendations first, because that's what I would personally want. I'm not concerned about what other people are watching. I want my stuff first, right? So you see how I put to make it more clear, there's 5 pixels between these, so you're like, okay, that's grouped together. But this has nothing to do with this, right? They're not related. So I made them 15 pixels. You might even go 20. It kind of depends. Like once you've been working through it, those kind of things will pop out at you, right? So I'm like, okay, 15 from there. Oh, but these are recommended, so there's going to be 5 pixels between that, right? Right. So that's kind of how you determine spacing. Also, too, there's also spacing between buttons, right? You don't want them to accidentally be able to press 2 buttons at the same time. So like these are 32 pixels, right? They're smaller than the 44 or the 40 that that is a good size for primary buttons. So I got 20 pixels in between, right? It's a decent amount of space. This is only 5, but you can't click on favorites. It's just a title, so no problem. I'll use that to my advantage. That I don't have to worry about that rule. So I'll make it 5. These are only 12 between each other, but they're also 112 huge. So there's a very small chance that you'll misclick. So spacing between each other doesn't matter too much because they're all pretty huge. Let me see, and then only thing is I am not a huge fan of like all of these like having tons of headers though. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, okay, give me a couple of things, but then I wanna like get into it. But at the same time, too, if you have like just a massive library of anime, it's like, well, then a little different, isn't it? Right? Probably one thing I'm thinking about is maybe there would be like a favorites button, and that when you tap on favorites, it'll go to your favorites, like to all your favorites, you know? You know? But anyway, this is just for demonstration purposes. Right? Okay, so we got all this. Let me see. See, I've even forgotten like all of my whatchamacallits, like all my shortcuts. Also, too, you want spacing between, you know, the nav bars and these. So, like, again, that kind of depends on, you know, how you look at it. I'm going to go ahead and do what I did, 10 pixels, right? Let me see here. And then this needs to be made scrollable. I can't remember. So how you make this, ugh. How do you make that scrollable? And instead of bringing it to the front, I'm going to send it to the back, since technically it is in the back. So I'm trying to, oh my goodness, is it under prototyping? I can't remember how to make this scrollable. That's how to lay out. Ooh, that's not right. Okay, let me do a quick search really quick. Oh, it's got to be a frame. Okay, so let me... Okay, let me see. I'm trying to... Give me a second here. Okay. Okay. Guess that's not a frame yet, right? Okay. Oh, man. Yeah, I can't remember how to do this. I have to make it scrollable? Let me see. Sorry, give me 1 second here. Let me look at this really quick. Okay, scroll frame. So I don't have that. Huh. Okay. I'm gonna figure it out eventually. It's been, man, see, this is how long it's been. I can't remember how to. Oh. There we go. Well, not exactly correct, but. Oh, wait, maybe it's this. Here we go. Yeah. Duh. Or maybe not duh? What's wrong? I don't know. There's something that I don't remember how to do, apparently. Hold on. I'm only going to spend a couple more minutes on trying to figure this out. Man. Wait, oh, vertical. Is that why? Because I'm an idiot? I am. I'm just an idiot. I did horizontal. Okay. I'm stupid. Okay. Well, look at that. We kind of figured out. See, I'm back to being a Figma noob now. That's what it does for you. Okay, so we got that. Let's see, and then we have the video player, right? I don't want, let me see here. Let's see, it's 390 by 844. Okay, so this will be the video player. Wait, why is this not? Oh, that's why. Did I press the wrong key again? Okay. Well, cool, right on time. We got that figured out. Okay, so it's cool. So we'll work on the video player here, and we already kind of had an idea of how we want to do it, right? So let's put 15 minutes on the clock. We'll spend 15 minutes working on this one. Let me see here. Okay, so status bar will always be there. There's nothing you can do about that, right? So that area is taken up. Question is, okay, are you going to have a nav bar there? No, not going to have a nav bar. Reason being is because focused on video watching. Let's see, padding of 8 pixels at least. We're just going to let that go, right? Let's see. Gonna have controls, right? So again, considering this, right, where your thumbs are gonna be, how big are the controls gonna be? Because of course, right? Let's see here. Let's see. I'll try to grab some icons really quick. Just give me 1 second. Let me see. Just 1 second. I'm just grabbing some icons really quick. 1 moment here. Just doing this really quickly. There we go. Right, so we'll have a play button. These are definitely wanted. And this is kind of stuff that would pop up kind of in user testing. Okay, so something. So if you notice, like these are all going to be control like primary icons, right? But you notice how they're all different sizes. So it's like, okay, so how are we going to do this so we can distribute them, you know, at proper sizes, kind of a thing. So what I'll do is, let me think here. Very, very simple. So first determine like what the touch target size is going to be. Because you do want the touch area to be bigger than the icon itself so that it, cuts down on, mistakes. So how big do we want to be this? The video player is obviously, we got plenty of room there. So let's make this 60. Right, let me see. How big would that be? Pretty big. In fact, also depends on how many controls we're gonna have. Can we do 100? I love you, Figma. It's a matter of, what controls are you going to be using? So I'm thinking of, any ideas for what your main control? So I'm thinking of, having a skip and next. Probably putting that closer. So my thought is these are not like our discussion with primary and secondary actions. These here I imagine are pretty primary actions, right? Stop and pause. We'll pretend that there's also a pause button there. Going back 10 seconds. Skipping, I would imagine is something that is not a primary action. In fact, it's something you wouldn't want to accidentally press either. So, if it's in the green zone, that also means it's possible that it's accidentally pressed. So I imagine that would be up here or somewhere, right? I'm just guessing. That's my thought. So let me think. So you think these actions here. Any other controls that you can think of, Signes or anybody who's here? A volume control. Now I just thought about it. For the video itself. But yeah, just go ahead, shout it out in chat. Any kind of controls that you can think of that you'd want to see for a video player. Let me see. I'm grabbing a volume button. Because that'll be somewhere. I don't think it'll be a primary action, but that would be there somewhere. Volume, I'd probably stick it up here too. Or like a smaller one somewhere. So I'm guessing. So I don't know. Let's see here. Yeah, we'll see. So, I think we only have 3 primary controls. We could do 30. And of course, that's what user testing will be for. So create a, let me see, up home indicator. Let me see. Not very organized here, am I? Let me see. Well, home indicator is an overlay, so honestly, you're perfectly fine. But it's good to not, like, put stuff in that area. Maybe put it, like, right at the bottom of it. Okay, so we're going to go with 100. Let me see here. So... Alright, so we talked about, what do you do when your icons are all, the icons themselves, not the buttons, but the icons themselves are all different, sizes. So this is what you do. You create a container, or you create the touch target area, and then you kind of, size them, down to appropriate size. You don't want them to be the same exact size. It just doesn't look so great. Well, I mean, maybe you do, but it's good to have, some area around the icon itself. So to give a little bit of, like, room to make an error, if they want to. So let me think. This will probably be... there we go. My dog's going crazy. Actually, 70 doesn't look too bad. What does this look like? If I made it a height of 70. That's pretty good. A height of 70 looks pretty good to me. Okay, so we're going to make that button is so, like, ugh. But it doesn't look like it's a... But it is. Play button never looks centered properly, but it is. Okay. So I got this already at a height of 70, right? So we'll stick that in there. Okay. Okay, so we'll bring the opacity down to 0. These are 30 pixels from each other, right? They are not 30 pixels from each other. massive, massive icons too. So you could probably make those icons a bit smaller too, because that is crazy intimidating. Maybe we'll give you like a height of 50. Yeah. But they'll have massive touch targets, so that's... So you don't really know how it's going to look until you get it in there. We got 3 minutes left to work on this. I'm just going to stick those there because I don't really have any more time. We'll stick volume. Stick volume somewhere like here. And my assumption is these controls would only appear when you're touching the screen. Fill. Not the pass-through. Okay. All right, and so this is where the video would play, right? And we talked about having like a subtitles area. See, what size text should it be? So now this would be really cool now I've thought about it. Actually, One Piece deserves more respect than that. Let me think. I'm trying to think of what I saw on last episode. Okay, so let's see. Let's make let's give a padding of 10. I mean, I'd like to, if you would let me. 8? I guess 8 is it. So now this would be cool. Now that would be kind of cool, I think. Let me see here. Get a little bit of space in between. Is if the subtitles appear down here. Maybe we'll add 10 just for a little bit of lead time. Now that would be kind of cool, I think. Right, and so you'd see kind of a, I'm done. You'd see a log of the, you'd see a log of all the lines and the conversation that took place while you're watching this stuff. Right. Yeah. Which means there need to be some kind of settings thing. 1 second. Let's see. Settings button here. Whoa. It's not at all what I want to do. Yes, probably even 24. We stick that there. Maybe? I don't know. So that you could adjust like how many lines you want to do. Nah, you know what? It would be up here. Because you know what? Honestly, once you've set it once, are you really going to set it a bunch more times? I just messed up my spacing a little bit. Yeah, so these controls, they would not pop up unless you were actually messing around with it, right? So in those settings, you'd be able to choose that kind of stuff, right? Let me just steal this really quick. I know I'm already going over my time to spend. Whoa. Right, okay. And we'd have a horizontal style as well. That was funny. Let me see here. Where you'd have the video style, and you know, you might try a couple of these, implement a couple of these things too, right? Let me see. Okay, so we've done that, right? We've done the designs. We got the controls and all that stuff. These icons are still so humongous. It's fine. Again, they will only appear if you're actually messing around with the thing. So let's talk about, you know, what you do after you... Man, I got a ton of emails. Wow, I got a ton of emails. Let's talk about what you do when you've gotten this, right? Again, how do we arrive here? We did user research to find out the stuff that people wanted, right? And we started designing, you know, couple that. You might have a few different versions of this. You might have a few different versions of this, right? And so now you're going to test it, right? So there's different kinds of... Oh, that's right. We're supposed to have some kind of badge that tells you when something's filler or not. We don't have time to go through all that. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all that to make something for all that. So there's different types of, you know, testing that you would do. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. This, you know, is the script that I would definitely something similar to that. Let's talk about the different... Let's talk about the different kinds of user tests that you might do, and you know, when you would use which ones. There's actually a font I like more than Roboto, but I can't remember what it is because I'm not allowed to use it in my job, so I just don't. Okay, so let's see. And so I'm sure that there's like proper terms for this type of stuff. Let me see here. We don't need the counter anymore. Yeah, we don't need the counter anymore. So yeah, because I think the rest of this is going to be all about user testing. You see here, bring us back to regular. So like I said, I'm sure that there's proper terms for this stuff. Like maybe the Nielsen Norman group has names for this stuff. To be honest with you, I don't get caught up on the names of stuff. I just kind of do things. Also, I don't think that there could be names for every possible thing. So, yeah, qualitative. Does this thing tell me if I spell things right or wrong? I think it does. So it's kind of a balance between qualitative and what's another word for this? So it's kind of a balance between these two things. Okay. So it's a balance between these two things. Okay? So qualitative is where you're looking, when you're doing user testing or even user interviews, qualitative is where you're like, you know what, I'm just trying to find out the qualities of it. How do you feel about it? You know, it's kind of when you're like, you know what, I'm an open book. I'm just trying to figure this out. You know, I'm trying to figure out, you know, I just want to know what your feelings are. I'm not looking for you to, there we go. I'm not looking for you to verify, you know, if some ideas I had are good or not. I'm just trying to get your straight thoughts on it, which is, sorry, things bother me. Which is fantastic. You know, there should be some type of qualitative testing at some point. You know, because you're going to get the honest truth, right? So like, and then A/B testing is where you're more like you're trying to. In fact, I think I'm going to change this to verification. This is what it's more like. Is it's more for verification. Verification is where you're like, okay, so we have an idea for this feature. We think it'd be a good idea, but we're testing it because we want to know if this feature is gonna be good or not, right? So, which you need both of them, right? But it's good to start with qualitative, and then you kind of move on to verification. This is where you kind of like, you're like, okay, you know, is this any good? And then after you're moving further along, and you're designing based on what users wanted. Then your next tests are like, okay, you said before that this is good. Is it still good? Like, do you still like it this way? Or, you know, did we design this feature this way? Because odds are they're not going to tell you, hey, you know, it'd be really great. It'd be really great if your icons were 32 pixels in the upper right-hand corner on the nav bar. About like, they're not going to say that. If they do, you know, you're the designer. You ultimately you need to make those decisions based on a ton of different factors, depending on like your programmers and developers and stuff like that, right? So they're not going to tell you that stuff. So, you know, you're just going to find out what stuff they want, and you start designing that, and then, you know, when you start placing them, then you're going for verification, right? So depending on what kind you're doing, it really, you know, depending on what kind of test you're doing, it really depends on your situation. So I'll give you an example of qualitative. So qualitative is, let's say that this is my, you know, we did the user testing, right? We did the user interviews, right? And we found out the stuff they want, right? And this is my first design that I'm presenting to them. I should not, like I said, your first test should be qualitative, because you know what is there to verify? You know, if they haven't said, all they've told you is the stuff that they like. Now you're trying to find out, do you like it the way that it's designed? There's you know, you shouldn't be confident about anything yet. So let's say that I have, you know, this design here, and I'm like, okay, I'm just looking for, you know, some qualitative, you know, feedback on this sort of thing. What that interview kind of looks like is this script here, although the scripts are kind of similar. It's very open, you may not have anything specific to say, but I would give this to them and say, I might say, you know what, go ahead and play around with it. If I don't have any like, straight workflows working yet, I'm like, okay, just play around with it, right? And let them kind of mess with stuff. Okay. It may only take like 10 minutes, to be honest with you, which is fine. For that test, it's, that particular needs for that test, your needs for it, it's pretty short. But, which also makes them happy because it's only a 10-minute test. And I would just tell them, okay, so tell me about your experience with that. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your feedback, right? And they'd say, okay, well, this and that and this and that. I like this, I don't like this, don't like this. And you're like, okay, tell me about the design of it. Tell me about, the controls and the buttons. Tell me about the features you see there. Tell me about the flaws and strengths. What would you do to improve it, right? And you're going to do exactly what we did before, where you're just going to collect everything that they've said, about it, right? And then you start, sorting them, and you'll know right away, like, do they like it or not? What things do they, do they by and large like? What kind of things do they not like, right? With a design in front of them, yeah, they may actually start saying, I think the button, might go here, or I need a button for this type of thing, right? And you're like, okay, perfect. We got ammo, right? We got stuff to work off of. And then you start designing based on that. You start making changes based on what they said, right? And that's where you're whittling it down to the version that they like. And eventually, you will hit a point where they say, I love it. I absolutely love it. This is awesome, right? And you're like, okay, do you have any thoughts or feedback? No, I got nothing. Whew, awesome, and you'll get, maybe you'll test with like 5 people and they'll all say the same thing. And you're like, yes, awesome. Yes, yes, yes. Like, we got the best version. And it's like, yeah, that's it, man. You're done. And if you went, by means of your feet, assuming that everything, all your user research was set up properly and everything from the beginning, which we talked about that in the first video, how to do that. It's kind of like, okay, at that moment, if you go forward with that design, you have a very high level of success right from the get-go. There's always going to be problems here and there. Like, there's nothing you can do about it, but you should be in a pretty good place. Also, where you might do a qualitative test is, and I just recently had this for the latest product I did for work, where, like I said, you want to create a few different versions if possible, right, of something, just because and again, you don't want to be married to any designs, because otherwise then you might get feedback and you're like, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, and that's exactly what heads for disaster, right? So usually you want to have a few different versions, right? But like, for example, the last product that I worked on for my job, it was kind of like we're already further along into our design standards and the way that other things were designed, that was like, there's really only one way to design this, And so it was, excuse me, it was very predictable how it's going to be designed, because it was like, there's really no other way to do this because we've already done similar things to this. This is kind of how it will look. So I only had one version of it, and I tried really hard to come up with other versions. I'm like, I don't have any other versions because this is how everything works, right? So I only had one design to share with users, right? And that's where you're kind of scary. That's kind of scary because you're like, man, I'm supposed to have multiple, but I really don't. Well, if they say they hate it, I don't know what we're going to do, right? That might mean we have to change other things, like other products, right? And that's where you do a qualitative, you do a qualitative type video where you're like, here's what it does, here's what it's for. I would build out more features and stuff. Like, I would design it so that if you clicked on an anime, it would go to, the video player and stuff. Like, I would make it a little bit deeper. Try not to spend too much time on it. Because, like I said, if it turns out something is bad, the more time you spend on it, the harder it is to, like, reverse that. But I would because I'm kind of like, well, we kind of like are designed into a corner right now. But it turned out they loved it. They loved it from the get-go. They had like a couple of things, a couple of features they wanted. And I was like, that's fantastic, and we did. And yeah, the final product they said was perfect. I'm super excited because it's one of the coolest things I've ever done. Well, excuse me and my team have ever done. It's not like I did everything. Right? So, well, if I only have one possible design, then yeah, I want to do something more qualitative, right? Where I'm just kind of like, just go for it, have at it. You know, I don't really have anything that I specifically want to hear about, right? So where would you do a more, verification one? So a probably good example of that is this right here. Our video player, right? Where it has the, this subtitle thing. So that's not something that's super usual, right? And so what I would do, and so, secretly, what I really want to know, is I wonder if this subtitle thing is a good idea, right? Or the way that I've implemented it, I wonder if that's a good idea. Right? So I would, and I might be like, oh, I think this is so cool. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, you might think it's cool, but you don't know if it's cool until it's user tested, right? Because even if I would use this app all day long, it's like I'm still only one person, right? So let's see, maybe so what I would do is I would design 3 different. Nah, my bad. No. Right? I secretly, want to know more about, the subtitle thing. Like, let's say that the video player stuff, like, everyone's already cool with that, okay? Everyone already said they liked it, so it's like, okay, we're gonna roll with that, right? Even if one person said I don't like it, I mean, obviously, if a ton of people say they don't like it, then you got to do something. But it's like it's done, right? Or let's say it this way, they may not like this. Maybe there's, maybe they're like, it's okay, like we're good with it, but it's not perfect. But let's say the programmers are like, I'm sorry, but that's the only way it can be done. Well, then that's it. That's the only way it can be done, right? So even if they give us feedback on it, it's like, sorry, I can't change it. The programmer said it's the only way it can be done, right? So I'm at that point, I'm more verifying, right? I just want to, make, right? But anyway, so let's say that, we're good with the video player and we're like, okay, we're talking about this subtitle thing, right? And I really just want to know about this, right? Would I listen to feedback with other stuff? Yes, I would. Qualitative? Yes, I would. But I really just want to know about this. But, I don't want to lead them on in the interview, right? So what I'll do is I'll create, different versions of it, right? Including a version without it, right? And then so in that case, my script is going to be a little bit different, right? This qualitative one was kind of like, I was like, okay, tell me about your experience with it. Okay, tell me about the workflow. Tell me about your thoughts on the button sizes. Tell me your thoughts on this area here, right? It's very, very general. I don't have anything specific to ask because I don't have any. I don't have anything I want to talk to them about. This, absolutely, it's different, right? I would start by asking all the time. I start with, okay, tell me about your experience, with this, with this version. And they tell you. And then at some point I'll say, okay, tell me about the subtitles. Right? And so I do that for each of these. Odds are they're going to bring this up on their own. Right? Which is, great when you don't have to ask the question because you don't have to worry about having led them on. Right? And they're going to tell you, their thoughts on them, right? Especially if you have one that doesn't have the subtitles. You need one without there because maybe this is just a bad idea. Maybe it's a bad idea, but if you don't provide them with a version without it, then they can't tell you, I prefer it without it, right? So this is the kind of test where I want to know if this feature is a good feature or not. right? I already know that all of this is good, but I'm curious about this particular feature. So, I'm gonna design. I did not even make myself live with my bigger head. I apologize. The bigger face cam. Sorry. But yeah, so for this, I'm more trying to verify something. I'm like trying to figure out if this is a good idea or not. And so that's where I would do a more verifiable test. Some call it A/B testing. Technically, that means something else. I don't know. But so that's how you would go about doing it. Same with, we talked about having some type of thing that tells you when something's filler or not, like an episode is going to be filler. Same thing. I'd have different versions, of that sort of thing, and find out which is the direction we want to go in for that feature, right? And that's where it's more of a kind of a verification, point of view, right? So point is, let's say that we did the user testing and they said, I love this, everything's great, that's fantastic. We get to the video player and they're like, I really like this one here, I like that one better. And this type of user test where you have multiple solutions, like that's a test that will take longer than 10 minutes, right? But that's perfectly fine, right? And they're like, I really like this one, perfect. They tell us everything else they like, don't like, blah 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 blah. And you just continue testing it until, again, you get to this point where they're like, I love it. This is great. I love it. And you're like, done. We're done with it, right? And when you get to that point, there's always going to be something that one person, doesn't particularly like, which is, completely understandable. But again, we're doing this, collecting their feedback and doing a cross-reference kind of thing, right? So, we're trying to meet the needs of a group of people rather than just one person. Yeah, and so you eventually get to a version where they're like, I love this thing, this is awesome. And once you kind of got all of that, done, that's it, man, you're done. You're ready to hand that off to developers or programmers and tell them, hey, ran this through testing. We're good to go, man. Let's do it. Let's create this thing, and we have a very high level of success. And of course, programmers and developers, they're going to actually code the thing, and they'll be testing involved with that too. Which, yeah, you might want to be involved with that. You should be involved with that. Yeah, you want to be, involved with that because, if the developer, so that you can help the developers with things. But the nice thing is, because you've done this stuff already, odds are the only problems are going to be like bugs, right? It won't be anything huge like a workflow issue or a design issue, which for programmers takes a lot longer. You kind of got all that stuff worked out. And again, the time that takes you to create these wireframes. Look, I created 4 different versions of this thing. It took me like 15 seconds. For a programmer, it's a lot. It takes a lot longer, right? But for me, that's no problem at all. It takes no time at all. It'll test it, and we're good to go. At my job, they like I said, they like I mentioned, they don't. I don't know. They have. The guy at the very top has a bad opinion of user testing, but I think it's because he doesn't know what it is. What real user testing is. They finally let me start doing it because I'm like, we were crashing and burning, just completely crashing and burning. And finally let me do it, and they're like, how long is it going to take? And I'm like, dude, you give me 1 week. You give me 2 days to reach out to my pool of you. The only thing I told them, the only thing you got to help me do is find people, right? Just help me find people, because that's something I can't do on my own. I'm not management. I can't reach out to people. And then I'll take care of everything else. It takes me, I send in, emails on Monday, tell them, hey, we're doing testing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Pick a time slot. You tell me, I'll make it happen. And we do testing for 3 days. And typically, I do like 1 round of testing. To be honest with you, usually by Thursday, let's say I'm scheduled like to test like 5 or 6 people. I try to do 6 people for my particular product. I do 6 people. I'm not going to go into why, but I do 6 people usually. But usually like 2 or 3, like 3 people in, it's already like if there's something they really hate, it's like all 3 people are saying that they hate something, right? So I'm like, I don't need to talk to the next 3 people to find out if they also hate this. Odds are they do. So I change it immediately. So by sometimes on the first day of testing, I'm like, okay, it's very clear that they hate this certain thing. And so I will, after I've gone through that, I will fix it so that the last 3 people, they get to see like the newer version of whatever the product is. Because again, they're only allowing me like 1 week of testing. So I'm trying to like make good use of it. And then, I fix it, and then I present the next version to the next 3 people, and then, we work from there. So I'm able to fit 2 rounds of testing into a span of 3 days. And so, I could go like the next week do a second round, but like I said, they got such a stigma against user testing. I'm trying to like, got to make, and that's kind of something you have to do. Is that you're going to get that all the time. You kind of just got to roll with it. You make use of what you have, right? But anyway, it's been, when I started doing user testing, they allowed me to. It turned everything around. Like, we don't get bad reviews on stuff anymore. And also too, when I have to defend, our designs, that's the really nice thing. When I defend our designs, it's not like me being like, well, I think it's good, or the developers or programmers thinks it's good. I'm like, well, I talked with 6 people, and they all said that it's good. So, you person at the top, with all due respect, I know you do make the final decision. I'm going to go with what you say, but I'm letting you know that 6 people like it this way, and so if you change it, I hope you know that it's probably a bad idea. And usually it works. He's like, okay, if 6 people say they like it, then that's it. So even though he doesn't have a good impression of user research, and that's because I'm the only UX designer besides one other. I'm the only UX designer that does user testing. The others don't even know how to do it. And so they. When somebody did do it, they didn't do it correctly, and it was like they did like a month of user testing, I heard. And I was like, what in God's name? Like, there's no reason, like, it should not take you that long, ever. I'm like, so anyway. That's my rant. So anyway, so we talk about, come with design, do user testing, and then we will it down to the best design. I'll reiterate again, why... and this is a chart I made to explain to non-UX designers at my job why user testing is so good. After I explain this, we'll do Q&A. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and start dropping them in chat now. Ask away, You can start dropping them in chat now while I'm giving you my TED Talk here. In fact, let me... Hold on a second. Let me make my face smaller so that you can... so you can see better. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and I'll start going through them. But here's how I explain to people in my job who are not UX designers, including the UX designers that don't do testing, why is this so important. I tell them that usually the way it works is, that you come up with an idea, you send it over to design, right? Design department designs it, right? That takes some time. Then you hand it over to programming, for them to actually create the thing. And that takes a long time, right? Then you launch it, that takes some time. And then people wait for reviews. And then when they get reviews, then they make changes, right? But that requires going all the way back to the design process or the design step. That's a really long, and then you design it, look at all this time that it takes to make a change. But if you stick user feedback right after the design phase, you I design it and I find out if something's bad, I only got to go back one step, to make that change, right? And so you make your mistakes here, so that after you got it figured out, then you hand off to programming, you launch it, and you're, got a good chance of, getting it right on the first try. So this is kind of what I share with them, to help them see the importance of user testing. There's also, this is also when I was interviewed for my job. I was interviewed at a couple places, and they all asked me, tell me, why is user, UX design so important? And this is part of the thing of what I told them, right? And so they liked that answer. So, yeah. So this is why it's important. It's a no-brainer. It's not an art thing at all. It's a scientific process, and there's no downside to it. There's zero downside to it. Makes everyone's life easier, save a ton of money, make less mistakes, right? To be honest, you could even, if you were like a small company that's doing this kind of thing, when it's done this way, you don't have to hire any programmers until the design feedback phase is done. So, if you're like, we're a small team, we can't, it's like, yeah, then you definitely don't want programmers sitting around twiddling their thumbs while they wait for you to get user feedback and do redesigns, right? And they're just getting paid, for doing nothing. I mean, it sounds terrible, but getting paid for doing nothing. If you're a manager, that's how you view it, right? But when this kind of design stuff, you don't have to hire any programmers until you've done it already. I mean, come on, man. There's absolutely no, downside. So that's my TED talk on it. So hopefully, that's helpful in some way. Okay, so let's look at some questions from chat. So, how do you decide when to advocate for a better UX process versus working with what they give you? Oh, that's probably a great example. Okay. All right. So, in fact, let me slide you guys over here. So when I'm actually looking at you, I'm doing this. So first, I'm always advocating for better UX process. I'm always doing that. If they're more hands off, I just do it on my own. I'll just do it. Okay, I know it's right, and I'll just do it better, right? And then, but at the same time, there's a lot of factors that go into it. It really depends, because at the end of the day, you also got to pay the bills, okay? And you don't bite the hand that feeds you. It depends on your situation. So, like, I'll give you an example. This is my, I actually just finished my first year. This is my first UI UX design job. Okay. Sorry, there was like a hair on the thing. That bugged me. Job lets me work from home, right? I'm able to buy food, everything my family needs, right? We have what we need now. So I mean, and since I was new, it was my first job. Like, I mean, I can't exactly make any demands, right? Because I got to pay bills. Now I'm about a year later, and I get some other job offers from time to time. So you know what? That might be I have other options. Okay, so that might be a time where I might start to advocate for better UX process, because I love UX design and I want to do things the correct way. So yeah, maybe this is the time that I start doing that, because if they were so angry with me they got rid of me, it's like, no problem. Like, I have other possibilities that I can go to, right? So that's something. To me, that's kind of like going nuclear, but that's something you keep in mind. Also, it's the attitude of the people. So the way it works in my company is you got me, and then I have a project manager. So I have a manager, right, who's in charge of my project. But there is a guy that's at the very, very top. He makes the final decisions. that guy at the very, very, it depends on your managers, right? The guy at the, so I'll give you an example. The guy at the very, very top. Oh God. First off, he is like a super, super nice guy. The problem is that he has some hard and fast opinions about things that are kind of, it's kind of like, why would you make that like a rule kind of thing? So like, I'll give you an example. He doesn't like modals, right? Which are those little pop-up windows, right? He doesn't like them. And of course I'm like, you can't just say you don't like modals. Like, that's just how things work sometimes, you know? You know, like it's just a really weird rule, right? But he's like, you know, his rule is I don't like them. And I was like, you know what? And so I was like, okay. And so I was designing my first product when I got there. And I'm like, this needs to be done with a modal. Like, this has to be done with a modal. Any other way is ridiculous. And so I was like, you know what, whatever. I'm just going to design it, you know, with a modal, which I did. And he mentioned, you know, I'm not a huge fan of that modal, but that works better, so we'll go with it. You know, so from that, I gauged that, you know what, if you give him enough good reason, he's willing to, like, make, you know, concessions. He's willing to compromise. Right? Now, if he was the person who was like, no, I don't like modals, get rid of them, then it's like, you know what? Then maybe that's not the person to advocate with. Or if you do it very gently. Okay? I advocate for user testing a lot. Okay? And then, like I said, and then you have my product manager, who he's the person I talk to on a daily basis. So he and I are much closer than the guy at the very, very top. Right? But, you know, my product manager, you know, they're going to go with what the guy at the very, very top says, right? So, I mean, he said he didn't like user testing, so I wouldn't be allowed to use user testing. And I advocate for user testing, but, you know, they didn't like it. You know, I do it gently. You know, you don't, I mean, that's the other thing. You don't want to be a jerk about it, okay? Like, even if you're right, even if you're technically right, if you're a jerk, then, you know, that's a people skill that you need to learn. Okay. So the situation with me is, you know, I advocate user testing, right? And, you know, no. I'm like, okay, you know, all right, you know. And I even started, like, there was a person on the team that was on our team that who was a good candidate for user testing. So I would actually get his opinions, you know, and have him test it out, you know. You know, so when people said, you know, Steve, you did a really great job. This looks great, and I tell them, and I'm like, it's one person, but one person is better than zero, right? Much better than zero. And say, you know, your designs are going out really good. You get them done on the first try, like they're really good on the first try. And I explained, I said, oh yeah, I've been having, you know, this guy, I've been having him test it out before I do it. Right? And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. We should start doing that. Like, yeah, we should, right? We should. You know, they don't realize that that's user testing, you know, but whatever. You know, just kind of slowly, like, kind of work on them, you know, very softly. And then it got to the point where they moved me to a whole nother team. They made me the lead designer for, you know, all the mobile products. And they were not turning out well, man. They were horrible. People hated them. Right? It was before I got there, though. I wasn't... At that time, it was nothing but programmers working on it, so they didn't have a designer, so they were kind of just doing their own thing. And so, yeah, it was turning out really bad. And they were just getting blasted for how bad it was, and that's why they brought me in, because they were like, I don't know, something bad's going on with it, right? And the thing is, everybody's getting yelled at. Okay? The programmers are getting yelled at. I'm not getting yelled at, but because I'm, like, brand new to the team, but I still take it I'm like, well, that's my team. My team is getting yelled at, so I got to figure out what I can do. Our product manager is getting yelled at, right? And that's when I was like, I see an opportunity. You know, everyone's desperate. I see an opportunity where, you know, and so I talked to my product manager and I said, hey, there's something I'd like to do. And I explained to him, I said, can I get like 20 minutes with you? Yeah, sure. And I talked to him about user testing. And that's the thing. When you explain what user testing is, it's perfectly logical. It makes sense to anybody. It just makes perfect sense. But I think it's just that people, when they hear user testing, they think of something else. But if you're able to explain it, like how I just explained it now, with the chart and everything, you explain like why it's good and you explain the process. 99% of the time, they're like, that sounds like a fantastic idea. How come we don't do that? That can't possibly fail, And so he said, okay, I'm going to let you do it. Tell me what you need. And I said, just find me people. And that's the other thing too. If you're like, okay, what do we need? Okay, so we need to buy a subscription with Maze, and we need to get with Astute, we need to get with like some kind of company to provide us with a bunch of people. It's like, oh, gee. And they're like, no, forget it. That's way too much. That's why it's important to be good at user testing as a designer, okay? Because then you can be like, I can do it, I would love to have an entire week of user testing, but it's like, you know what, he was like, how long is it going to take? And I said, how long will you give me? And he's like, 20 minutes. And I said, okay, then I'll make it so that the tests are small and they're only 20 minutes. Okay? I would love to have 30. I would love to have 45. But you know what? You work with what you got. They gave you a cupcake. You would love to have a full-size cake, but they gave you a cupcake. Work with that cupcake. Make it the best cupcake you can possibly make, right? My analogy didn't make any sense, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. They gave me like a little bit, and they said, okay, we'll give you a little bit. And I was like, 3 days, give me 3 days, right? And it turned out great. It changed everything, right? They said, okay, fantastic. This worked out really, really great. Okay, you can do it again for the next product. Again, did it again. Bam, knocked it out of the park. Took a product that people hated, ran it through user testing, and fixed it. Now people love it, right? And so now we're at the point where I sweat bullets, man, thinking about it. My project manager's like, okay, I want you to create a presentation on user testing, and I want you to share it with our programmers and our developers. It's like, okay, want to get them on board. Did it I was sweating bullets, man, because my programmers and developers, I love them very much, but man, they can be like the biggest critics. They are my biggest critics, which is good. It's a collaborative process, so you want them. They're kind of rough. They're kind of rough with me, but it's fine. That's why I don't get married to any of my designs, because otherwise I'll hurt my feelings really bad. I'll get angry. Did the presentation, that they loved it. They're like, oh my God, this makes so much sense, right? And so now we're at the point where that's part of my process, right? And then very soon I'm going to be doing a presentation for the guy at the very, very top, to share with him why user testing, and how user testing helped us, right? And hopefully that will, change his mind at least a little bit. So to answer your question, DJ Panda Amanda, oh, that's a cool name. When do you advocate for better UX design process versus what they give you? It's always a balance of the two. To be honest, that's kind of it. You advocate when you can. If they give you some room to advocate for it, then you do it. If they give you a little bit of room to do it, you do a little bit. They give you a lot of room to do it, then you do a lot of it. You do a lot of advocating, right? Depends on the personalities of the people. A huge thing, right? Slowly but surely. You do the best you can. And if it turns out that it's a company that they just absolutely will not give you any leeway whatsoever, and you don't like it, then one day when you're like, you know what, I'm getting other job offers, then you move on, if that's what you want to do, right? So it's always a balance between the two, of working with what you got, working what they give you, and advocating. They kind of go hand in hand. But the thing is that I love about UX design so much is I'm never afraid to advocate for it, because I know it works. It's like just on paper, it works every time. And then since doing it, it works every time. So I'm never afraid to advocate for it. So sometimes you gotta be patient, and like I said, at the end of the day, you gotta pay the bills. Okay, man, you gotta pay bills. So pay your bills. right? So, I apologize. That was a long-winded answer, but I hopefully that answered your question. I apologize. I have not taken my ADHD medication yet today, so my brain is kind of all over the place. So, DJ Panda Amanda, let me know if that was a good enough answer for you. If that covered your bases, and if it didn't, just drop. If you need more clarification, just drop another question in the comment. Signes, what is a good salary range for a junior UI UX design to make sure the company's not taking advantage? That's a really great question. Man, that's a really, really good question. Okay, I'm glad it was a good answer, Amanda. I'm glad it was good. So good, man. That's a really great. So, let me see here. To be honest with you, I don't know if there's a straight answer for that, Signes, mostly because it really depends on where you live. Like right now I'm looking up ZipRecruiter and I'm looking at salaries. Yeah, that's a really, really tough question. The biggest reason it's a tough question is because there's so many companies that do not understand what a UI UX designer is. It seems like most of the time they think it's a graphic designer that also does coding. And it's like, that is not at all what that is. What that is a graphic designer that does coding. So it's really, really hard. Because, I mean, if you have coding experience and they're asking you to do coding, your salary needs to be a really nice, it should have a pretty significant bump compared to a UI UX designer. And also, too, I'll say, too, I don't really know how you define what a junior UI UX designer is compared to just a UI UX designer. Now, obviously, a senior, and again, like I said, it varies from company to company, like what these titles mean. But like a senior like UI UX designer, like absolutely, that's generally those are ones that they don't do. They tend to step away from the design stuff, and they're kind of more like watching, the other designers, right? So I mean that's pretty clear what that is. A lead designer, it's kind of the same thing. Although lead is kind of like project to project. For example, I am not a senior UI UX designer, but I am the lead UI UX designer for that particular product. But I mean, they're kind of similar, right? And then a UI UX designer, does the designs, and then junior, I don't even know what junior, like junior to me, like gives the connotation of you do less than a UI UX designer, but I honestly don't know what that is. I really, really don't know what the difference between a UI UX designer and a junior is, except for maybe the number of years you're doing it. But I got hired for this job with zero experience, only my portfolio. But I'm not a junior. They don't consider me a junior. So to be honest, it's really, really hard, and maybe it's because I'm overthinking it, but it's really, really, it's really tough to say, Signes, just because it's really hard to categorize what that means exactly, and also too, it depends on kind of where you live. I've never seen salaries. I'll say like compared to like when I was younger, I've never seen salaries vary so greatly, depending on where you live. Which I mean, that's just kind of the way it works. If you live in California, your salary is high, but so is the cost of living. That's kind of my situation. I don't live in California, but I live in an area where the cost of living is very, very high, and so I think my salary is a little bit higher than somebody like another state or something. But again, it's because my cost of living is higher, and like, yeah, it's really high. Like, I can't even. I would love to buy a house. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. It's just. it just won't happen because it's just too expensive out here. So I just rent. It's cheaper to rent currently right now where I live. It is cheaper to rent than it is to buy, and so I just take the money I would normally spend extra on a mortgage, and I just put that into a savings account, a high yield savings account. Anyway, that's completely off topic. So I apologize, Signings. I really don't know. So here's what I would suggest. So you go for a job that has the salary requirements that you need, okay, and has the stuff that you need, right? My biggest thing the biggest reason I wanted to get into UI UX design is because I wanted to work from home, because I'm just tired of just driving everywhere. I'm sick of driving everywhere, and you know, they also offer me a salary bump for my previous job, so I was like, that's a win-win, right? You know, and I was like, the salary is good enough. I get to work from home, right? So for me, it was a good deal, right? For me, somebody else it may not be, but for me, it was good, and so that was good enough for me. Now I'll say that once you start doing it, like, right, you know, I've just finished my first year with this company. I just, you know, finished a year. You start to see how good you actually are and how effective you are, right? I've had, you know, my performance reviews have always been very, very high, because, and I tell them that I'm like, I'm not just good at my job, like, I get results. I get really good results, you know? And you realize, like, I am pretty good at my job. And so that was actually a point where I was like, well, if you know, this is what you'd pay me, you know, having zero experience, right, and this being my first job, but I'm getting really good results, then you know what? I know what my worth is. I'm higher than that. Like, I deserve a raise, because I'm clearly better than, you know, some, you know, I'm really good. I'm getting really good results. And yeah, they gave me a raise. Awesome. Very, very happy. I was looking at possibly leaving. They gave me a raise, and I was like, well, I ain't going nowhere. You guys appreciate me. So, I mean, once you start getting into it, once you get your first job, then you start to know, like, how much you're worth. But yeah, starting salary, it seems like it varies very greatly. The best advice that I can offer on it, like I said, I don't think that there is an answer for it, because there's so many ridiculous factors. There's so many things that are not ironed out yet, and so many things companies don't understand. I don't think there is an answer. So my advice is just pick a job where that salary and the working conditions and status and stuff, where it makes sense to you, where it's an advantage for you. You know, that's the best advice. I apologize, Signies. I wish I had like a more solid answer. I've looked at myself, and I don't know. I've tried to answer that for myself, and I just don't know. Like, I just went on ZipRecruiter, and it says that the national average is like 90,000 a year, which I'm like, yeah, maybe nationwide. And then it says, you know, for my area that I live, that's 54,000, and I'm like, no, that's not right at all. That's way, way off. Way off, because that's, yeah, I live in one of the most expensive places in the country. It's more expensive than California, but people don't think about it. They don't realize that it exists. And yeah, I'm like that's way off. So I don't even think, even like Googling it, you know, I don't even think they're right about that kind of stuff either. So I'm sorry, Signies. I wish I could offer a really, like, an actual answer, but that's the best I could say. And again, advice-wise, just do what's best for you, you know. Yeah, and I think it's because so many companies don't understand what UI UX design is, so they can't figure it out either, you know. Even the company that I work for, they don't understand what UI UX design is. right? But I mean, that's why when my performance reviews, I tell them, like, here's what I do. This is the work that I do, and this is what gets results. And sounds like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Yep, it is a lot of work. I love it, but it is a lot of work. You know, and they decided, okay, we'll give you more since clearly you're doing a lot of work, you know? So, yeah. But I mean, I can say from my experience, I mean, I love this stuff so much. Like, I think about this stuff all day, all night, man. I love this so much. I love my job, you know? Every day I wake up. If anyone has any other questions, go ahead and drop them in chat. I'm gonna tell like a story. So if you have any questions, you go ahead and drop them in chat, and I'll get to them. We're still doing a Q&A. But I'll say I love it, man. When I go to sleep at night, I'm excited because I can't wait to get up and do work because I just love this stuff so much. You know, Sunday nights I used to dread, like, oh, I gotta go to work tomorrow. Now I'm like, oh, I can't wait to wake up and go to work. So yeah, so I love it. So if it's something that you love, oh man, go for it. You know, even if this job paid the same amount, I'd say, as my previous job, I still would go with this because I love it so much. Would it be possible to see a mock-up of what you showed? Yeah, I got you, Signes. I got you. Would it be possible to see a mock-up of what you show the developers to convince them about UX on one of your live streams? Be curious to see if I or anyone would. Love to. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, be happy to. To give you a brief overview of what I did, and yeah, we'll totally do it on the live stream. So this is when my product manager said, okay, and I think massive kudos to my product manager to first off, like, not be like a robot that just only does what the guy at the very, very top says, but to say, you know what, I see that we're having a problem. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you do it. I don't even know if the guy at the very top, you know, said it was okay or not. And even if he did, it's like my project manager, his butt was on the line, okay? So, and that's why I want to make sure it got done. Because if I screwed it up, it's like, then it'll never happen again. But we got it right, you know, which we did, we get it right. So my project manager said, okay, Steve, yeah, I'm going to let you do it. But it was kind of hush-hush. Like, we weren't telling people about it. So he and I, we took a week to, like, find people. And I said, okay, give me next week, and I'm going to do it. And so I did the testing, and it worked out fantastic, right? Because, like I said, at that point, up to that point, like, our team is getting lambasted. We're getting yelled at because our products are just, people are not liking the products that we're putting out. So I mean, the so that's, what was I saying? You know, at this point they're like, they're kind of, and that was the thing, like when I first got there and I tried to like kind of direct them to more UX process, they pushed back at me, you know. So I kind of I was like, okay, then we're gonna get yelled at, and so we got yelled at, you know. I didn't feel like I was getting yelled at because I'm like, not my fault, they won't listen to me, right? So anyway, product manager, he said, yeah, go ahead, and so I did it, you know, a couple of times, where the process worked out, you know, and got really good results. And that's, you know, without telling the devs that I did user testing, you know, I'm handing these designs over to them, and you know, they're, you know, moving forward with it. And so, you know, to summary, what I did was I said, okay, I wanted to share with you guys something that we've been doing. We've been doing user testing, and I wanted to share with you the process, right? So, had a thing where I explained. No, it's fine, guys. Yeah, Signy's no problem, and DJ Panamana, absolutely no problem. Ask all the questions you want. What was I saying? And so my presentation actually made it in XD because I was like, I hate PowerPoint. So I had a section where I explained like, here's what it is. You know, this is where you put products in front of users. You know, you get their feedback and you design based on that. Blah blah blah. You know, and I said, let me give you an example. We started with, you know, this product that we all know has been like a giant head scratcher for us, right? That we could not be able to figure it out. It was so complicated. I'm gonna do a YouTube video on this at some point because it was such a ridiculous product. Just horribly designed, and man, we turned that sucker around into an awesome piece of work. And I explained, I said, so let me explain how it works. So I had 3 different possibilities for them, right? And I let them use each one. Here's, they like this one, you know, and I don't go into crazy detail because otherwise you lose them. And I said, okay, so I had 3 different possibilities for them. I said they loved this one, hated this one, and hated this one. I said, so very clearly, I know that it was more like this one's okay, love this one, you know, or like okay with this one, and we hate this one. So I said, okay, we got rid of that third one because clearly they don't like it, and we made another version based on the stuff they said about the first 2. They loved that one, and so I kind of like explained, like, here's what they said about it. Like I showed them the affinity map, and I said, here's what they said about it, so we knew that this is the direction to go in, blah blah blah. And I said, and here is the final version that all of them said, we absolutely love this. We want you to go forward with this. And then I showed them the little bar chart thing that I showed, you know, you guys about, you know, here's a summary of why it's so good. You know, you save a ton of steps. And I told them, I said, it took me 3 days to come up with the proper design. And everyone said it was perfect. And that was when we were like, this is awesome. And we want you to keep doing this, you know. So, but yeah, we'll do a live stream. I'll share, you know, what I did there. You know, what it looked like. I have no problem with that at all. You know, because I know it's tough, you know, for UX designers to get them to convince them. Possible show us your first portfolio, what you like about it, what you do differently, like more experience. Absolutely, yeah. Signies, I feel like I'm taking over chat. No worries at all, Signies. I'm curious how your interview went, questions they asked, your presentation, portfolio, tips for... Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely. So, how about we do this? Well, the next live stream that we do, we'll talk about, because that's on my list, my to-do list of YouTube videos to do, is my interview and how all that went. Because I was interviewed at 2 companies, and actually the interview process went pretty much the same. It's so hard to do videos, man. It just takes so much work to do videos. But yeah, absolutely. So what we'll do is for the next live stream, we can go over my portfolio. In fact, let me make notes. Let me write all this down really quick. And so the next live stream, I'm not 100% sure when it will be. Give me 1 second. I have a very strong idea of when it will be. Let me see here. Make this. You gotta be bigger than that because I can't. So here's what we'll do. The next live stream. It's bold so I can find it again. Okay. Let me see. I'm not live on YouTube? Why am I not live on YouTube? Let me see here. Huh. I don't know. Why am I not live on YouTube? Oh my god. This stuff gets on my nerves. Hold on a second, guys. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm gonna answer it. Am I really not live on YouTube? The software even says that I'm live on YouTube, but I believe if I'm not, I believe you. Yeah, I don't see anything about me being live. What the heck? Ugh, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll figure this out. Okay, so here's what we'll do for the next live stream. We'll talk about my portfolio, which I have not even touched. I have not updated it or anything since I got this job. I have like pieces, I just haven't put them in there yet. And the problem is like all the stuff I work on, it's all underneath NDA, so I can't put any of that into my portfolio, so it's kind of rough. So I have to make like other versions of it, I guess you could say. Okay, so we'll talk about my portfolio. Let me see here, and then we'll talk about. We'll talk about my interview. We'll talk about my portfolio presentation. Future tips. Okay, I can't believe it says that I'm live on YouTube. Let me see here. Yeah, maybe I just don't know how this works. That's most likely thing is I just don't know how this works. But thank you for telling me. Here I'm thinking that I'm on YouTube, but it's funny that I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay, so let's see here. So next live stream, we'll talk about my portfolio. Then we could talk about the interview process I went through. Then we can talk about how I presented my portfolio. Yeah, thank you so much for letting me know, Amanda. I don't know, man. I don't know. I got so much to learn about this streaming stuff. So we'll talk about portfolio. We'll talk about the interview process. Love to talk about that. We'll talk about how I presented my portfolio. Let me think here. And we'll talk about tips for designers. Let me see. There was one big question that they asked. Make sure that I answer the question. So they asked me, why is UX design so important? So yeah, make sure I answer that. And then tips for future designers. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll do that then. Yeah, like I said, that was meant to be a YouTube video, but it takes so long to do videos, man. And I'm in this house with this tiny little house. It's hard to find space to do it. Like my office is like my hand right now is more than halfway to my office, and so like, and my desk is this, so it's like I have this much space to work with, and it's just not much space. So anyway, it's just really tough to. And then taking everything out, like everything's in that closet back there. It's like everything out, so everything up, and blah 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 blah. And then so it's work. But cool. So that's what we'll do the next live stream. Yeah, in fact, I'll go ahead and drop it over here. So that's what we'll do. Talk about portfolio. Talk about the interview process. Talk about how portfolio is spelled wrong. Sorry. Talk about the presentation of it. Why how to answer that question, why is UX design so important, and tips for any future designers. So It'll be good. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. Again, Amanda, Signes, thank you so much for your questions. Fantastic questions. Keep them coming. Do not be afraid to ask questions here. Anything I can do to help. I want to help. So, no problem whatsoever. Amanda, thank you for letting me know that the stream is not working on YouTube. I got to figure out what's going on with that. And so I'll see you guys. So actually, I'll kind of tell you when I think the next stream will be. I think it's going to be... I'm not 100% sure yet, but I think it's going to be July 3rd. Because I have July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I have that off. My company has given it to us off. The 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. So, if that turns out, so, and I think by then too, hopefully I'll have things set up because I got to do some reorganizing. So, that's what I'm guessing. Either the 3rd or 4th or 5th, we'll have another live stream. Who knows? Maybe we'll live stream all 3 days. Who knows? We'll find out. So cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope it was informative. Thank you for the great feedback. What we could do for the next stream. I need feedback. I need user feedback. So, but thank you guys so much for joining. Absolutely, Amanda. Absolutely. So keep up the good work. And take care. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.